I was elbow deep in a half-finished cedar deck behind the old Miller place when the phone buzzed against my hip like a trapped hornet. The screen was cracked from the time I dropped it off a ladder in 22, but the text lit up clear enough. Danny. Dad, come to LA. New house. Grill's hot. Bring the stories. No punctuation, no emoji. Just the same clipped rhythm he'd used since he learned to text at 12. I thumbed back a thumbs up, then stood there in the sawdust haze, staring at the message until the screen went dark. 43 years on this planet, 38 of them swinging a hammer, and that little rectangle of light cracked me open like a cold chisel through pine. Danny hadn't asked me west since the wedding, and even then he'd kept me at arm's length. Photo line, open bar, polite handshake with the groomsmen who looked like they'd never lifted anything heavier than a latte. I told myself it was the new job, the new wife, the new life. Kids grow wings. That's the deal. You teach them to fly, then you watch the sky. But this was different. An invitation with my name on it, not just family. I could smell the charcoal already. Hear the sizzle of tri-tip. Picture him flipping steaks with the same wrist snap I taught him over a rusty Weber in the backyard of the house on Maple. I saw the treehouse too. Warped cedar planks, a rope ladder frayed to threads, still standing in my yard like a monument to the years he lived under my roof. I wiped my hands on the rag tucked in my belt and walked the job site like a man counting blessings. The Millers wanted a wraparound deck with built-in benches and a pergola that would outlast their grandkids. I'd sketched it freehand on graph paper the color of weak coffee, every joint labeled, every screw specced. Danny used to sit on the tailgate of my truck and trace those lines with a stubby finger, asking why I notched the rafters instead of toenailing them. Stronger that way, son. Wind hits a house like a fist. You want the bones to laugh at it. That night I sat on the porch with a Budweiser sweating in my fist and opened the old photo album I kept in the milk crate by the door. The cover was cracked red leather, the kind you don't make anymore. First page, Danny at 6 months, bald as a cue ball, grinning around a pacifier. Next, 3 years old, wearing my tool belt like a kilt, the pouches dragging on the ground. I turned slower with every page, the paper soft as cloth from handling. There was the summer we built the treehouse. Him handing me nails one by one, tongue sticking out in concentration. There was the day he split his chin open on the slide and still begged to keep hammering. There was graduation, him in a cap, 2 sizes too big. Me in the only suit I owned, the one I buried his mother in. She'd been gone 12 years that June. Cancer doesn't negotiate, it just evicts. Danny was 16 when we lowered her into the ground. He didn't cry at the cemetery, stood ramrod straight, jaw locked like he was holding the sky up with his teeth. That night he slept in the treehouse. I found him at dawn, curled under the tarp we used for a roof, clutching the hammer I gave him for his 10th birthday. I carried him inside, boots and all, and never said a word about the wet spot on my shirt. After that, he changed. Not all at once, more like a radio drifting off station. The straight A's turned to C's, the pickup basketball games turned to nights I couldn't account for. I figured it was grief wearing a teenager's face. I doubled down. Extra hours on job sites, extra pancakes on weekends, extra yes sirs when he asked to borrow the truck. By the time he left for college in California, the treehouse was already sagging, and so was I. The invite sat on my phone like a live wire. I read it again at 2 a.m., the glow painting the ceiling blue. I thought about the years of Christmas. Cards with pictures of him and Sarah, smiling, tanned, always in front of some new backdrop. Santa Monica Pier, Griffith Observatory, a rooftop bar with the city glittering below like spilled diamonds. I thought about the birthday calls that got shorter every year, the way he started sentences with "in LA we," like the rest of the country was a footnote. I thought about the last time I heard his laugh, really heard it, and realized it was the day we poured the concrete pad for the treehouse, both of us knee-deep in mud, shouting made-up pirate curses at the sky. I booked the flight before common sense could talk me out of it. One way for now. I'd rent a truck at LAX and drive back if the visit soured. I told the Millers I'd be gone 10 days, maybe 2 weeks. Mrs. Miller pressed a Tupperware of lemon bars into my hands and said, "Bring back pictures of that boy of yours." He's got your eyes." I nodded, throat thick, and left the deck half-framed like a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. The morning I left, I stood in the backyard with coffee gone cold. The treehouse leaned southeast, one corner surrendered to gravity. Morning glories had claimed the rope ladder, purple blooms nodding like gossip. I set the mug on the railing and climbed the rungs anyway, slow, testing each board with my weight. The platform groaned but held. Inside, the air smelled of mouse nests and old dreams. Someone, kids probably, had spray-painted a lopsided skull on the wall. I ran my hand over the beams Danny and I notched with a handsaw, the kerf still clean. I left the hammer where it was, hanging from a nail like Excalibur. Some things you don't take with you. At the airport, I wore the same boots I'd worn to his wedding, scuffed, resoled twice, still polished out of habit. The TSA agent asked if I was carrying tools. I said, "Just memories," and he waved me through without a smile. On the plane, I sat beside a woman knitting something the color of sunrise. She asked where I was headed. I said, "To see my son." She said, "Lucky man." I stared out the window at the clouds like cotton pulled apart by giant hands and wondered if luck had anything to do with it. The invitation lived in my pocket, the whole flight, folded into a square small enough to lose but heavy enough to anchor me. I traced the edges until the paper softened. I rehearsed the stories I'd bring. The time Danny caught his first fish and refused to clean it. The night we stayed up watching the Perseids and he swore one meteor was a UFO coming to abduct our dog. I practiced the hug I'd give him, firm, backslapping, the kind that says I'm here without needing words. Touchdown jolted me awake. The seatbelt sign dinged off like a starting gun. I stood in the aisle, duffel slung over my shoulder, heart hammering louder than the engines. Somewhere beyond the jet bridge, my boy was waiting with a grill and a new life and maybe, just maybe, a place for his old man to stand without feeling like a relic. I didn't know yet that the house would be empty. I didn't know a neighbor would sprint across manicured grass shouting warnings like a prophet in paint-splattered overalls. I didn't know the stories I carried would burn to ash on an LA street corner. All I knew was the invite and the weight of 43 years balanced on the head of a pin. I stepped into the terminal, boots thudding on polished concrete, and followed the signs to baggage claim like a man walking toward Judgment Day with a grin he couldn't wipe off. The pickup idled rough, like it knew something I didn't. Carl's paint-flecked knuckles rested on the sill of the open window, his breath fogging the glass in short, angry bursts. He kept his eyes on the house, those tight blinds, the pineapple knocker, the single wine glass on the teak table visible through the open side gate. Every few seconds his gaze flicked to the street, scanning for the black Range Rover he swore had peeled out an hour earlier. "Talk," I said. My voice came out flat, the way it does when you're on a job and the inspectors found a cracked beam. "No panic, just steel," Carl swallowed. "First you gotta promise me something, Pops. You hear me out? You don't go charging in there like John Wayne. You walk away quiet, you drive straight to the airport, and you forget this address exists. Deal?" I stared at him. The sun hammered the windshield, turning the cab into a greenhouse. Sweat trickled between my shoulder blades. "My son's in there somewhere." "Start talking," he exhaled through his teeth. "Fine, but keep the engine running." Carl straightened, rolled his shoulders like a fighter stepping into the ring. Then he leaned in, voice dropped to a gravel whisper that barely cleared the rumble of the V8. 18 months ago I moved in next door, 1425, the blue stucco with the lemon tree out front. Retired art teacher thought I'd paint sunsets and drink cheap Merlot till the Social Security ran dry. First week, your boy Danny comes over with a bottle of the good stuff, some Napa cab that cost more than my monthly pension. Says welcome to the neighborhood, asks if I need anything. Sarah's there too, all smiles, yoga body, hair like a shampoo commercial. I think, hell, maybe California's not so bad. He paused, rubbed a smear of cerulean paint off his thumb onto his overalls. Then the packages start showing up. Not for them, for names I never heard. Esther Goldstein, Harold Park, Maria Delgado. Old folks. Return addresses from pharmacies, banks, Medicare. I figure identity mix-up, bring a couple to their door. Danny thanks me, signs for them like it's nothing. Sarah offers lemonade. I drink it. 2 days later, the same boxes are back in my recycling, shredded to confetti. I felt the first twist in my gut, the slow grind of a drill bit hitting rebar. Keep going. Month later, my sister Ruth in Fresno calls crying. Somebody drained her teacher's credit union. 32 grand gone in 3 clicks. She's got early onset Parkinson's, lives on a fixed income. Bank says the charges came from an IP address in LA. I drive up, sit with her while she cancels cards. On the statement, a charge for consulting services to a shell company called Silver Oak LLC. I Google it, registered to this address. Carl's eyes flicked to the house again. A delivery van rolled past, slowed, then thought better of it. I start watching. Not proud of it, but I watch. They leave at 9:17 every morning, back by 6:42. Same route, same Starbucks drive-through. Weekends they host brunch. Catered, 20 people. Laughter loud enough to rattle my windows. I walk my dog past the fence, hear Danny on speakerphone. Yes, Mrs. Chen, just read the link aloud. We'll verify your account. Sweet as honey. Then Sarah laughs, this high tinkling sound, and says, "Tell her the grandkids will love the surprise." He stopped, wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. They're running a fishing mill, Pops. Voice phishing. They spoof senior centers, Medicare hotlines, grandparent scams. Sarah cold calls from lists they buy on the dark web. Danny's the closer, convinces them to install remote access software to fix the problem. Once they're in, they siphon bank logins, crypto wallets, reverse mortgages. They record the calls, every tremor in an old woman's voice when she realizes she just lost her nest egg. They sell the audio overseas to scammer farms in Nigeria, Romania. Training tapes. 10 grand a pop. The words landed like framing nails shot from a gun. Sharp, deep, impossible to pull out. I saw Danny at 14 helping Mrs. Kowalski carry groceries after her hip replacement. I saw him at the wedding, promising to honor and protect. I saw the treehouse hammer hanging in my shed, waiting for a hand that might never come back. There's more, Carl said. His voice cracked. They don't just take the money. They keep the victims on the hook. Send fake recovery agents, Danny in a cheap suit, Sarah with a clipboard. Charge processing fees to get the money back. Ruth paid them 4 grand before I dragged her to the FBI. Agent said it's a closed loop. Steal, launder through crypto, reinvest in more lists. They've got a server rack in the garage, looks like a damn data center. LED lights blinking like Christmas. I saw it once when the door was up. Smells like hot plastic and ozone. I gripped the wheel so hard the vinyl creaked. Why hasn't anyone stopped them? Because they're smart, Carl spat. They target widows, vets, people too embarrassed to report. They donate to the local PTA, sponsor the Little League team. Cops come by. Danny hands them a check for the Widows and Orphans Fund. Sarah cries on cue. They're untouchable, until someone like me starts connecting dots. He reached into his overall pocket, pulled out a crumpled business card. Silver Oak LLC, same shell company. On the back, scrawled in blue paint, FBI LA Field Office, Agent M. Torres, 310-477-6565. I've been feeding her scraps for 6 months. Bank records, IP logs, photos of the server rack. She says they need one more piece. Proof the victims are being recorded without consent. Audio files. She's close, but they're paranoid. Installed cameras everywhere. Motion sensors. If you walk in there now, they'll know. They'll wipe the drives. They'll disappear. The street was quiet except for the cicadas starting their afternoon sermon. A kid on a lime green scooter rolled past, earbuds in, oblivious. I stared at the house. The bougainvillea swayed. The wine glass on the table hadn't moved. Somewhere inside, a clock ticked toward 6:42. What about Danny? My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. My boy, he wasn't raised for this. Carl's eyes softened, just for a second. Kids change, Pops. Money's a hell of a drug. I saw him last week, out by the pool at 2 a.m., counting cash on the diving board. Stacks of hundreds rubber-banded. Sarah filming on her phone, laughing. He looked hollow, like the kid you knew got scooped out and replaced with a shark. I closed my eyes. Saw the treehouse again. Danny at 8, hammering a nail crooked, then straightening it with tears in his eyes because he wanted it perfect. I opened them. What happens if I leave now? You live, Carl said simply. You go home. You call Agent Torres. You tell her Carl sent you. You give her the father's name, emotional leverage. She'll move faster, and you never come back here. Not ever. And if I don't? He didn't answer. Just looked at the house like it was a coiled snake. I shifted the truck into drive. The transmission clunked. Carl, you got a family? Ex-wife in Tucson. Daughter in Portland. They think I'm crazy. He managed a crooked smile. Maybe I am. I reached across the seat, offered my hand. His grip was dry, strong, paint ground into the creases. "You're a good man, Carl." "Thank you." He released me, stepped back. "Clock's ticking, go." I eased off the curb. In the rear view, Carl stood in the middle of the street, a lone figure in paint-splattered overalls, shrinking smaller and smaller until the bougainvillea swallowed him. The GPS voice came back online. "Calm as ever. In 1 mile, take the ramp onto I-405 North." I floored it. The warning wasn't a shout anymore. It was a brand seared into my chest, glowing white-hot. My son's house receded behind me. Perfect lawn, perfect lie, perfect prison. I didn't look back again. The 405 was a parking lot. Brake lights bleeding red across 6 lanes of shimmering heat. I cut across 3 of them anyway, tires squealing, horn blaring from a Prius I never saw. My hands were locked at 10 and 2, knuckles bone white. The business card Carl had pressed into my palm now sweat stuck to the steering wheel. Agent M. Torres, 310-477-6565. The numbers glowed like a lifeline and a death sentence all at once. I needed air that didn't taste like exhaust and betrayal. I took the next exit, Wilshire, Santa Monica, didn't matter. Hooked a right into a strip mall lot and killed the engine beside a dumpster that smelled of old falafel. The silence rushed in, thick as the sawdust I used to breathe on job sites. I rolled the window down. Somewhere a palm frond scraped against a metal sign. My pulse was a jackhammer in my ears. I stared at the card until the ink blurred. Then I dialed. It rang twice. "Torres. Female, clipped, no nonsense. Agent Torres, this is..." My voice cracked like green lumber. I cleared my throat. "Name's Jack Brennan. Carl from 1425 Maple Crest sent me. He said you're building a case on my son." A beat of silence. I heard papers rustling, a chair creaking. "Mr. Brennan, I was hoping you'd call. Carl said the father was flying in today." "Where are you right now?" "Strip mall off Wilshire. I left the house 20 minutes ago." Carl told me. He told me things. The words clawed their way out. "I need to know if they're true." Another pause. Then, "Pull into the Starbucks lot on the corner. Black Tahoe, government plates. I'm 5 minutes out. Do not go back to the house. Do not call your son. Do you copy?" "Copy," I said, and the line went dead. I sat there, engine ticking, staring at my reflection in the rear view. The man looking back had sawdust in the creases of his neck, crow's feet carved deep from squinting at blueprints, and eyes that had just watched 43 years of fatherhood collapse into a single afternoon. I looked like a stranger wearing my face. The black Tahoe rolled up exactly 4 minutes later. Agent Torres stepped out. No suit, just dark jeans, white sneakers, hair in a tight bun that said she didn't have time for bullshit. She carried a tablet like a shield. She scanned the lot once, then slid into my passenger seat without asking. "Drive," she said. "Slow, around the block. We talk here," I obeyed. The truck crawled past nail salons and vape shops. Torres tapped her tablet awake. A grainy, still image filled the screen. Danny, my Danny, leaning over an old woman in a wheelchair, smiling like a game show host while Sarah held a phone angled to catch the laptop screen. The woman's hand trembled as she typed. "That's Mrs. Gloria Resendez," Torres said. 87, widowed, lost her savings, $212,000 last March. She thought she was helping her grandson post bail in Reno. Your son walked her through installing AnyDesk. Sarah recorded every keystroke, every sob. They sold the clip to a ring in Bucharest for $8,000. My stomach lurched. I pulled into an alley behind a dry cleaner, through the truck and park. "Show me more." Torres swiped. Bank records, Silver Oak LLC, transfers to offshore wallets in Seychelles, Lithuania. Dubai, a ledger with columns labeled target, yield, bonus. Names I didn't know, dollar amounts that made my vision tunnel. One entry, R. Kowalski, $30,400, recovery fee paid in Target gift cards. Mrs. Kowalski, the widow from my old block who used to pay Danny $10 to mow her lawn. "There's audio," Torres said quietly. She tapped play, Danny's voice, smooth as new varnish. "Mrs. Kowalski, the bank flagged your account for fraud. I'm with the Federal Recovery Division. Just read the verification code aloud. Yes, right there on your phone. Perfect. Now click Allow Access. You're doing great." A pause. Then Sarah, off mic, giggling. "Tell her the grandkids will love the cruise." Mrs. Kowalski's voice, thin, trembling. "It says I'm sending money to Nigeria. Danny, Sharper now. That's the scammers, ma'am. We're intercepting. You want your money back? You follow my instructions exactly. The recording cut off. Torres let the silence sit. I stared at the dashboard. The odometer read 48,721 miles, same as the day I taught Danny to drive stick in the high school parking lot. He'd stalled it 6 times, laughing so hard he cried. I'd told him, gear shifts in life, son. Ease the clutch or you'll lurch. He'd nodded, wiped his nose on his sleeve, and nailed it on the 7th try. Torres spoke again. We've got 23 confirmed victims. Total take north of 3 million. They launder through crypto mixers, then flip it into this. She swiped to a real estate listing. A condo in Miami, oceanfront, listed at 1.8 million. Closing date, 2 weeks from now. Buyer, D. Brennan and S. Brennan Revocable Trust. That's their exit plan, she said. They vanish, leave the shell company holding the bag. New names, new passports. We think Sarah's cousin in Vancouver's printing them. We're close, Jack, but we need the servers. They're in the garage, custom rack, liquid-cooled. If they suspect heat, they'll wipe with a dead man switch. 30 seconds, everything's gone. I rubbed my face. The stubble rasped like sandpaper. Carl said they record the calls. For training, Torres nodded. Worse, they gamify it. Top earners get bonuses, Rolex, Teslas. Sarah keeps a leaderboard on the fridge. We pulled photos from a burner phone Carl slipped us. Danny's at the top, crown emoji next to his name. I laughed then. A short, ugly bark that echoed off the alley walls. Crown emoji, Jesus. Torres let me sit with it. A dumpster lid slammed somewhere. The smell of bleach drifted in. There's one more thing, she said. She swiped to an email screenshot. From Danny1427@gmail.com to Sarah1427@gmail.com. Subject, Dad's visit, Plan B. If he asks questions, show him the guest wing. Keep him away from garage. If he pushes, I'll handle. Love you. Sent yesterday, 11:47 p.m. I stared until the words burned holes. Plan B. Handle. Love you. Torres closed the tablet. We can raid tonight, but we need probable cause inside the residence. Carl's footage gets us to the curb. You're the father. If you go in, invite only, and find the server room, photograph it, we're golden. You walk out, we knock 30 minutes later. They never see it coming. I looked at her. You want me to bait my own son? I want justice for Gloria Resendez, for Ruth in Fresno, for every name on that ledger. You want your boy back. This is the only way he ever faces a mirror. I thought of the treehouse again. Rotting, yes, but still standing. I thought of the hammer on the nail, waiting. I thought of Mrs. Kowalski watering her roses with a coffee can, trusting a kid who used to wave at her dog. Give me the camera, I said. Torres reached into her jacket, produced a pen, black, cheap, the kind you get at bank counters. She clicked it twice. 4K video, motion activated, audio's clean up to 20 feet. Clip it to your shirt pocket. You've got 1 hour before they're back. Text me when you're inside. I'll be 2 blocks out. I took the pen. It weighed nothing and everything. One more thing, she said. Whatever he says, whatever story he spins, remember the ledger. Remember Mrs. Resendez in the wheelchair. You're not his father in there. You're a witness. I clipped the pen to my pocket. The click sounded final, like a nail gun driving home the last spike. Torres opened the door. Clock's ticking, Jack. I pulled back onto Wilshire. The sun was lower now, bleeding orange across the windshield. I merged onto the 405 again, southbound this time. Traffic parted like it knew I was carrying dynamite. The cul-de-sac appeared faster than before. Same perfect lawns, same gleaming SUVs, but now every shadow looked like a camera, every sprinkler a tripwire. I parked at the curb this time, not in the driveway. Left the duffel in the truck. Took only the pen and the weight of 43 years. The front door opened before I knocked. Danny stood there in a linen shirt, barefoot, smiling like the kid who used to hand me nails. Dad, you're early. Traffic must have been a breeze. He hugged me, quick, practiced. I smelled his cologne, the same one from the wedding. Behind him, Sarah waved from the kitchen island, blender whirring. Margaritas in 5. Danny clapped my shoulder. Come in, come in. Guest wing's ready. Let me give you the tour. He turned. I stepped inside. The marble was cold under my boots. The console bowl still held perfect oranges. The clock on the wall ticked loud enough to wake the dead. I followed him down the hall. Past framed photos. Danny and Sarah in Santorini. Danny and Sarah at Coachella. Danny and Sarah shaking hands with a city councilman. No photos of me. No treehouse. No sawdust. He stopped at a door marked office, private, keypad. He punched in a code, 0825, same as the gate. The lock clicked. Gotta show you the new setup, he said, grin wide. Home automation, crypto mining rig. You'll love it. He pushed the door open. The garage beyond was dim, cool, humming. Server racks glowed electric blue, fans whispering like conspirators. Cables snaked across the floor in perfect bundles. A whiteboard on the wall, Q3 goal, 1.2 num. Underneath, a leaderboard. Danny's name at the top. Crown emoji. He stepped inside, arms wide. State of the art, right? Passive income, Dad, the future. I stood in the doorway, pen camera rolling. My heart was a sledgehammer. I managed one word, explain. He turned, still smiling. And the shocking truth, the full, rotten, irreversible truth, poured out of him like sewage from a busted main. The garage smelled of ozone and cold metal. The server racks blinked like a heartbeat. Danny stood in the middle of it all, arms still spread, that same grin he used to wear when he showed me a straight A report card. Only now the crown emoji on the whiteboard behind him wasn't for spelling bees. It was for draining widows. Explain, I repeated. My voice didn't shake. It came out flat, the way it did when a subcontractor tried to pass off warped 2x4s as premium pine. Danny's grin faltered for half a second, then snapped back wider. Dad, come on. It's just business. You taught me. Find a need, fill it. These people, they're sitting on money they'll never spend. We're reallocating, giving them peace of mind. Sarah appeared in the doorway behind me, margarita glass in hand, salt rim glistening. Jack, you're missing the tour. She saw my face, saw Danny's, and the glass lowered an inch. Everything okay? I didn't turn. Tell me about Mrs. Kowalski. Danny's eyes flicked to Sarah. A silent conversation passed between them. Lightning fast, practiced. He laughed, but it was thin. Old neighbor, right? Sweet lady. We helped her with some identity theft stuff last year. Pro bono? Pro bono, I echoed. 32 grand in Target gift cards. That pro bono? The grin vanished. The garage lights hummed louder, or maybe that was the blood in my ears. Sarah set the glass on a workbench. Jack, you're tired from the flight. Let's go upstairs, have a drink. I reached into my pocket, thumbed the pen camera to stop recording, and held it up between two fingers. FBI's 2 blocks out. They've got the ledger, the audio, the Miami condo. Start talking or start lawyering up. Danny's face went the color of the drywall dust I used to blow off my jeans. He lunged, not at me, but at the server rack. His hand slapped a red button recessed in the metal. A low whine started rising fast. Dead man switch, I moved without thinking. 43 years of muscle memory. I grabbed his wrist, twisted hard the way I used to when he reached for the table saw too young. He yelped. I slammed his arm against the rack. The whine cut off with a pathetic sputter. Touch it again, I said, and I break it. Sarah screamed, short, sharp, then clamped both hands over her mouth. Danny sagged against the rack, breathing like he'd run a mile. Sirens in the distance. Getting closer, I let go of his wrist. He didn't move. Start from the beginning, I said, and don't lie. I'll know. It spilled out of him then, a busted pipe of truth. How it started with a side hustle selling Medicare leads. How Sarah's cousin in Vancouver taught them to spoof caller ID. How the first Mark, an old vet in Oregon, sent them $5 grand in Apple cards just to verify his identity. How easy it was. How the money felt like oxygen after years of scraping by on startup salaries. How they told themselves they were only taking from people who could afford it. How the lies got bigger, the marks got older, the bonuses got bloodier. I didn't want to hurt anyone, Danny whispered. I just stopped seeing them as people. Sarah was crying now, silent tears cutting tracks through her makeup. We were going to stop. After Miami, start over. A kid, maybe. A real life. The sirens were on the street now. Red and blue lights strobed through the garage door windows. I looked at my son, really looked. The linen shirt was expensive, but the shoulders underneath were narrow, boyish. The eyes that once begged for one more story at bedtime were bloodshot, darting. The hands that used to hand me nails without being asked were trembling. You stopped being my son the day you sold Mrs. Kowalski's voice to a scammer in Bucharest, I said. But you're still breathing. That means there's still time to be a man. The garage door rattled up. Torres and 4 agents in windbreakers poured in, weapons drawn but low. FBI, hands where we can see them. Danny raised his hands. Sarah sank to her knees. I stepped back, boots crunching on a stray Ethernet cable. Torres nodded at me once, professional, respectful, then cuffed Danny. He didn't resist. Sarah sobbed as they zip-tied her wrists. The servers were already being unplugged, evidence stickers slapped on like postage stamps to hell. I walked out while they worked. The cul-de-sac was chaos, neighbors on porches, phones up, a news chopper thumping overhead. Carl stood on his lawn in the same paint-splattered overalls, arms crossed, watching the house he'd warned me about finally crack open. I crossed the street. He met me halfway. "You okay, Pops?" I shook my head. "No, but I will be." He offered his hand. I took it. We stood there while they loaded Danny into the back of a cruiser. He looked out the window once, eyes meeting mine. I didn't look away. I didn't wave. I just let him see what he'd done. Torres approached as the cruisers pulled out. "We'll need your statement." "Tomorrow's fine." "You did good, Jack." I nodded. "Get Mrs. Kowalski's money back." "Every dime. We will." I climbed into the rental truck. The duffel was still on the passenger seat, photo albums untouched. I opened one at random, Danny at 10, gap-toothed, holding a hammer twice his size. I stared until the image blurred, then closed it. I drove east, 405 to the 10 to the 15, straight shot to the desert. At a truck stop outside Barstow, I built a small fire in a coffee can with pages from the album. Not all of them, just the ones where he was smiling like the world was still good. The flames took the paper fast, curling it black, lifting ash into the night. I watched until the last ember died. Then I started the real work. First stop, Mrs. Kowalski's bungalow in my old neighborhood. I sat on her porch with a cashier's check, restitution from the seized accounts, courtesy of Torres, and told her the truth. She cried, I cried. She made me eat 2 pieces of rhubarb pie and sent me home with a jar for the road. Next, every senior center within 50 miles. I brought coffee, donuts, and a folding table. I told my story, no names, just the shape of it. How easy it is to trust a familiar voice. How to spot the scams. How to fight back. I left flyers with Torres's number and a promise. If it sounds too good, it's a lie. Call before you click. I built a website. Simple, ugly, functional. Spottheshark.org. Uploaded redacted case files, warning signs, a forum for victims to share without shame. Traffic spiked. Emails poured in. An 82-year-old vet in Tucson sent me a medal from Desert Storm. A widow in Flagstaff mailed a crocheted blanket. I hung the medal in the cab of my truck. The blanket lives on the couch where Danny used to nap after Little League. I never went back to L.A. Danny took a plea, 7 years, federal pen in Colorado. Sarah got 4. I write him once a month. He writes back sometimes. The letters are short, careful. He's learning carpentry in the prison shop. Says the instructor reminds him of me. I don't know if that's healing or just more manipulation. Time will tell. The treehouse finally collapsed last winter. I left it where it fell. Rotted beams, morning glories strangled in the ropes. A new family moved into the Miller place. The kids play in the yard now. Sometimes I watch from the porch and remember sawdust in Danny's hair. Here's the call, brothers. Raw, loud, and non-negotiable. Check your kids. Check their mail, their apps, their laughter at 2 a.m. Ask the questions that make you the asshole parent. Love isn't blind trust. It's 20/20 vision with a wrecking ball attached. Teach the old folks in your life to hang up and call back on a verified number. Teach them gift cards are cash. Once they're gone, they're gone. Teach them their grandkids will never be in a Mexican jail needing Bitcoin. If you see something, say something. Carl did, I did. You can. I still swing a hammer. Decks, barns, wheelchair ramps for vets. Every nail I drive is a promise. Never again on my watch. The house in L.A. is on the market now. Stucco's faded. Bougainvillea's gone wild. The listing photos show an empty garage, clean as a whistle. They scrubbed the blood from the cutting board, but the stain's still there if you know where to look. I do, and I'm not done swinging. Rolled off the 405 at sunset. The rental pickup's tires humming like a tuning fork against the heat-shimmered asphalt. The GPS voice, calm, female, vaguely British, kept saying, in 0.2 miles, turn left, as if she'd never seen a palm tree in her life. I obeyed, muscle memory from decades of following directions on job sites. The city unfolded in layers, billboards the size of barn roofs, a homeless vet pushing a cart stacked with blankets, a Lamborghini idling at the light like it owned the intersection. I kept my eyes on the road, but my mind was already in the backyard I hadn't seen yet, picturing Danny waving a spatula, Sarah setting out plates with those little bamboo forks she loved. The neighborhood appeared without warning. One block, you're dodging potholes and vape shops. The next, you're in a cul-de-sac so pristine it looked photoshopped. The houses sat back from the street like they were posing for a magazine spread. White stucco, black trim, succulents in geometric pots. Every driveway wore a luxury SUV the way other people wear watches. I slowed to read the numbers. 1421, 1423, 1427. There it was, Danny's house. I pulled in nose first, the truck's bumper kissing the curb with a soft thud. The engine ticked itself cool. I sat for a second, letting the AC bleed out the last of the airport smell, recycled air and pretzels. The house stared back at me. 2 stories, copper gutters flashing like new pennies, a front door the color of Merlot. Bougainvillea spilled over the entry arch in violent magenta. A brass knocker shaped like a pineapple gleamed under the porch light, even though it was 2 in the afternoon. Everything looked expensive and slightly bored. No cars, no Danny leaning in the doorway with that lopsided grin, no Sarah stepping out in yoga pants, waving like she'd been watching for me. Just the low, mechanical sigh of sprinklers across the street and the faint chlorine tang of somebody's pool. I checked my phone. 2:17 p.m. The text from yesterday still glowed. Land at 1:50, Dad. We'll be here. I thumbed a quick, just pulled up and hit send. 3 dots appeared, then vanished. No reply. I killed the engine and climbed out. The heat slapped me. Dry, oven hot. The kind that makes your shirt stick instantly. My boots crunched on the driveway pavers, each one laid in a herringbone pattern so perfect I could have used it as a level. I grabbed the duffel from the passenger seat. Canvas, patched at the corners, stuffed with the photo albums and a 6-pack of Coors for old time's sake. The weight felt good, like ballast. I slung it over my shoulder and started up the walk. The lawn was putting green short, edged with surgical precision. A single lemon lay on the grass near the mailbox, bright as a tennis ball. I bent to pick it up, habit from years of cleaning job sites, and noticed the mailbox itself. Brushed steel, no name, just the numbers 1427 in raised chrome. The flag was down, no mail. I dropped the lemon in the trash can by the garage, lid sealed, no smell, lined with a fresh white bag. Somebody here was meticulous. I reached the porch. The welcome mat said, "Bless this mess," in curly script, which struck me as funny because there wasn't a speck of mess anywhere. I raised my fist to knock, then paused. Through the sidelight I could see a foyer. Marble floor, a console table with a bowl of oranges so glossy they looked plastic, a mirror reflecting the staircase beyond. No movement, no sound except the faint tick of a wall clock I couldn't see. I knocked anyway, 3 solid raps the way I used to knock on Danny's bedroom door when he was late for school. The sound bounced back at me, swallowed by the thick door. Nothing. I tried the bell. A chime rolled through the house like a church bell in a canyon. Still nothing. I stepped back, squinting up at the second-floor windows. Blinds drawn tight, all of them. A breeze stirred the bougainvillea. A petal drifted down and stuck to my boot like a drop of blood. I brushed it off and circled to the side gate. Tall, cedar, latched with a keypad. I punched in the code Danny had texted me months ago for the wedding gift delivery. 0825, his mom's birthday. The latch clicked. I pushed through. The backyard was a postcard. Rectangular pool glowing turquoise, cabana with gauzy curtains, a built-in grill the size of my first apartment's kitchen. Outdoor speakers nestled in the landscaping like black mushrooms. A single wine glass sat on the teak dining table, half full, lipstick on the rim the color of dried roses. The grill was cold, grates scrubbed clean, no smoke, no scent of charcoal or tri-tip. Just the faint chemical bite of pool chlorine and something else. Citrus cleaner, maybe. I set the duffel on a lounge chair and pulled out my phone again. Still no reply. I dialed Danny's number. It rang 4 times, then voicemail. His voice, younger than I remembered, saying, "You know what to do." I left a message. "Hey, it's Dad. I'm in the backyard. Everything okay?" I hung up and stared at the pool. The water was so still I could see the sky reflected perfectly, clouds sliding across the surface like ghosts. That's when I heard the hedge rustle. I turned, expecting a gardener or a pool guy. Instead, a man burst through the oleanders like he'd been shot out of a cannon. Mid-60s, wild gray hair, paint-splattered overalls, barefoot. His eyes were wide and white all the way around, like a horse smelling smoke. He sprinted across the lawn, arms pumping, and didn't stop until he was 3 feet away, close enough that I smelled coffee and turpentine on him. "Run away!" he shouted, voice raw as if he'd been screaming for hours. "It's too late." "Mister, but run!" The words hit me like a 2x4 to the chest. I dropped the duffel. The Coors cans clunked inside. "Whoa! Easy, friend. I'm here to see my son." He glanced over his shoulder at the main house, then back at me, chest heaving. "Your son? Jesus." He lowered his voice to a hiss. "Name's Carl. I live next door. Been watching this place 18 months. You don't want to go inside. Not today, not ever." My pulse kicked up, a hammer striking a nail. "Where's Danny? Where's Sarah?" Carl's eyes flicked to the wine glass, then to the gate I'd left ajar. "Gone. Left an hour ago. Black Range Rover, tinted windows. She was carrying a laptop case like it was full of gold bars. He had a duffel, same kind as yours, but newer. They didn't look back." I took a step toward the house. "I'll wait inside." "No." Carl grabbed my arm. His fingers were strong, calloused, painter's hands, or maybe a carpenter's. "Listen, you go in there. You're on camera. Every room. They'll know. And once they know you know." He trailed off, shaking his head. I looked at the house again. The blinds hadn't moved. The wine glass hadn't moved. But something had shifted, like the moment on a job site when you realize the foundation's poured wrong and the whole build is doomed. Carl let go of my arm. "I've got 5 minutes before their system pings me for loitering. Walk with me to the street. Act like we're chatting about the weather." I followed, legs moving before my brain caught up. We reached the driveway. My truck sat there, patient as a dog. Carl stopped at the curb, hands on his knees, catching his breath. "Start the engine," he said. "Keep it running. Then I'll tell you why you need to leave before they come back." I climbed in, turned the key. The pickup rumbled awake. Carl leaned against the door, eyes on the house like it might bite. "Your son," he said, voice low, "isn't who you think he is anymore." The driveway stretched empty in front of me, pavers gleaming like teeth. I gripped the wheel, knuckles white, and waited for the rest.